Hey everyone, it's Joy Brooks here at Email and Coffee, and today I'm speaking with Sarah Scudder, who is not an email marketing specialist, but a specialist in her own right. So today, introducing Sarah Scudder. Take it away.
Awesome. Howdy from Austin. Lovely to be here today. I am the Chief Marketing Officer at a supply chain technology company called SourceDay. I actually started my career in enterprise software sales. And when I was doing sales, I started to realize a lot of the sales processes and systems seemed very backwards to me. And I questioned why I was spending so much time cold outreaching to people when I could pivot my strategy and start educating the market at scale. So when people were ready to buy, they would reach out to me, actually. So that really piqued my interest in marketing, and I decided to actually pivot from sales to marketing. And I have a very unique and different approach and strategy around turning marketing teams into demand generation departments and leveraging dark social things like LinkedIn and video content to really drive education and educate the market and really get to know and understand your buyers.
Yeah, it's really interesting because you're sort of coming from a procurement mental background and you're looking at marketing and you're trying to drive it in a way that's using sales, but that's sort of using everything, your automation, your technology, all the things that you've been taught in procurement and sourcing, and you're sort of bringing it all out of the silo. And it's interesting because each component of business has other components built into it naturally. You can't market without being a content writer, right? You can't sell without being a good speaker, right? You can't work a room without, being able to have some sort of psychology of what's going on in the room. So everything that people do have skills that are transferable, which sometimes people don't understand. They don't necessarily, I came out of school with a degree in archaeology, which essentially meant I was a researcher and I was detail oriented, but people didn't see that transferable skill. The fact that I could speak foreign dead languages, they didn't understand that possibly meant I could be a coder, but it's directly a transferable skill. It's another language that you don't speak. It's dead. it lives in the background. So one of my biggest beefs about email marketing is that essentially we're doing it in a silo, and marketing doesn't or isn't equal to sales in many companies, because sales makes the money and marketing spends it, and sometimes they can't trace it back. And also because marketing may not necessarily be able to go into customer service and say, can you tell us a few stories? Because I'm sure they would be great. They can't do that. And the content writers may be so thrilled with telling stories that they may not want to actually talk to the people that are living those stories. So a lot of the small pieces of email marketing don't come out of the silo. And I'd like to ask you about your experience with all that you're doing. How do you see the benefits of understanding the supply chain and how that would benefit email marketing?
So I want to address a couple of the comments you just made about content writers and customer service teams and talking to customers. So in my opinion, marketing is all about talking to as many customers as possible spending as much time as possible with the people that you are selling to and immersing yourself in that industry. If you are doing marketing and not talking to customers regularly, you're not doing good marketing. So if you work at a company where you can't talk to customers, I would get out and go do marketing for a different company. Customers should drive your content strategy. No questions asked. They are the experts. They're the ones living and breathing day to day. They're the ones using your tool. They're the ones who understand what's happening in the market. So if you are at a company that doesn't have a customer insights program, when I joined SourceDay, for one of the first things I did was launch a customer insights program where I spend time interviewing customers. We've since brought on a product marketer, so her and I now run those interviews, but we spend 30 to 45 minutes as many times as possible a week talking to customers, interviewing people in our industry, which happens to be supply chain, and spending time talking to prospects and buyers in the space. So I would argue if your company doesn't have something like that, drop everything you're doing and start putting a program in place. And if your company doesn't allow it or isn't open to it, I would go somewhere else. Because at the end of the day, you can't do good marketing without talking to customers.
This is sort of where, bringing it out of the silo where, if you've got a B2B or if you've got a direct to consumer and you're working email marketing, you're oftentimes given content and you're told this is what we're doing. And it would work so much better for most marketing people to be able to have the conversation before alongside the content writing. So be part of the chain, be able to say, who are we writing for? I'm seeing the stats. Are you looking at the stats? Maybe you're writing for women and we're actually, the men are buying for the women. Perhaps the demographic shifted during COVID. And I would say that happened, quite honestly, everywhere. So it's difficult. They're telling the story forward. So the content writer is giving you the story and you're the email marketer and you're moving forward. You get the stats, you need to move them backwards and say, well, this is what's happening. So it's either effective, it's not effective. And obviously you talk to sales department, or you're finding it if you're converting and you get an idea of what is going on. The message can change. Also, you've got to look at what's happening in social, dark social too, where you don't know what's happening, but something's happening. So you've got possible things going on LinkedIn, which may or may not be the same that's going on Facebook, and things that are going on Twitter and Instagram and Pinterest and all the other channels that you may have open for your brand. And not only are you talking, but you're listening to your customers, because you may be saying something and they may be saying something completely different. Your brand may have changed and you don't even realize it. You make tissues and you thought that they were only for colds and moms are using them for babies, and you don't know that. And you've got an entire market there you're not talking with. And at some point in time, you'll lose it. So it's interesting to understand your product and how it's being produced, on time, delays. The print industry right now can't get hold of paper. So books and magazines are sometimes, they're scurrying around to actually get product out, because they depend on another marketplace that's been impacted because of COVID. And everything has changed because of COVID. So there is logistics involved in marketing, and they do intersect. And sometimes it's resolved with technology, automation, And I know that that's something that you're doing in sourcing, that you're, that you're looking to automate systems and technology. Can you talk a little bit about how that, again, intersects with marketing? Because what you're automating in the back end is what people are automating in email marketing.
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing in the supply chain space. So I started my career in the indirect side of supply chain. So if you break spend into two different types of buckets. Indirect is sourcing and procuring all the things that don't go directly in the end product that you're making. So if I use my Bradley Cooper cell phone case as an example, any parts or materials that are used to go into this product is considered direct spend. I'm directly buying something that's going into the product that I'm selling. Indirect would be all the things that that cell phone case company needs to operate. Their offices, insurance, contingent labor, marketing spend. So first half of my career was on the indirect side. We were selling technology automation solutions to marketing procurement executives to automate and streamline marketing purchases. Now, I pivoted last year when I took a CMO job at SourceDay onto the direct side. And now we have a software solution that we sell into the direct spend space. So we're selling into people in supply chain that are buying parts and materials, or distributors or e-commerce brands that are procuring items that they're then reselling. And our tool automates all the purchase order changes that happen after an ERP system cuts a purchase order. We have found that 52% of the time after you issue a purchase order, you're going to have changes to the line items on those purchase orders. And that can result in lots of emails, lots of spreadsheets, lots of manual back and forth between the buyer and the supplier. And that opens up a whole host of risk issues. What if you miss an email? What if you mistype something in a spreadsheet? What if you forget to enter something back into the ERP? So that's kind of my career and background in supply chain, and that's specifically what my company and team is working on today. Now, why do I think marketing and supply chain intersect or are relevant? I would say that supply chain impacts every single aspect of every single business. So anything that you buy has a touch point into supply chain. Whether you're buying a technology solution, like an email solution, whether you're buying a contractor or third-party solution to come in and do a niche project, to write content for you, to run specific programs, or whether you're buying something that's actually physically produced, like a magazine, like a book, like a promo piece. So supply chain hits all aspects of anything that you're procuring and using to execute marketing.
I think most email marketers don't realize, and in many times they're tasked, promote the soap, right? And so they're promoting the soap, have no idea how much is in inventory.
Yeah, and I would say, so we are a NetSuite partner. NetSuite is a very fast growing ERP for e-commerce and retail brands, which you just mentioned. And so we have a direct integration with NetSuite. So if somebody's on the NetSuite ERP, they'll often buy our software because we have that direct integration. And a lot of the companies that we work with are retailers and e-commerce brands. And one of the biggest challenges that they have today is supply. Not able to get enough supply to fulfill the demand. So you have a product for sale online, end customer goes in and places the order, do you have enough product to actually fulfill the order? And if not, how are you communicating to that supplier so they don't get upset and frustrated? Because the worst thing you can do as an e-commerce brand is market something and then somebody place an order and then they not get it, and then they're disappointed and upset, and then they go online and give you a bad review. Bad reviews are detrimental to your brand. I know for me, if I'm going online to make a purchase, I absolutely look at and read reviews. And I think it's fair to say that most consumers do. So if you're in marketing, in particular for a retail or e-commerce brand, it's very important to have a sense of what's going on from a supply perspective. Do you have enough inventory? If not, do you have a system and process in place to communicate delays or talk to the customer about why they're not going to receive something on time? And that's a whole nother piece of marketing that I think we're going to see more and more companies invest in, is the whole customer success piece. Mm-hmm. So once an order is placed, what sort of email communication are you sending your end customers? For me, I love humor. So I like funny emails. If I order something from a brand and they send me funny, clever emails, that's something that I like and relate to. And then incorporating video in those emails. So I think it's really important to humanize any brand. People buy from people. So once a customer places an order, maybe they get a video from someone on the team saying, hey, thank you so much for your order. Maybe you tell a little story about the company. And if you're not going to be able to fulfill and deliver on time, maybe you send a funny little video explaining why.
That's a great idea, video. I have recently been receiving from certain people who are trying to network. Instead of receiving LinkedIn messages, I'm getting little short videos. And that's wildly effective as far as I'm concerned. I'd say that, I think the theme of this is really getting email out of the silo. And I probably can't say that enough, that I work for small companies and have specific projects. I'm capable of asking those hard questions and they don't push back on me. But sometimes when you're in a corporate environment and you have a specific job and the task is to do X and you have someone else doing Y, when you push Y too much, it causes friction. So, my heart goes out to people who are trying to do the right thing, but are not necessarily in functional environments where they can. And, there probably needs to be lots of change in place to really help, to manage a lot of things in a healthful, beneficial, moving forward, and not, well, this is the way we've always done it, let's keep doing it this way manner. But we've learned some hard lessons, hard lessons with COVID. And I hate to keep bringing it up, but it was sort of that, well, in the worst case scenario, well, it was the worst case scenario, and it kept on literally snowballing. It started out as being something, obviously it's a sickness, and then, we can't go to work, and then, the company's closing, and then, I've lost my job, and then, I can't get the products, and it just kept on snowballing. It was the worst case scenario. So we can't go back. We need to have the pivot needs to be in place. That ability to make an oddball decision, perhaps similar to the fact that your oddball decision, I don't want sales, I want to manage my sales through marketing, as opposed to switching it the other way around, where sales marketing what to do. You're handling sales through marketing. How do you, what are some examples of very successful scenarios in that process that that you've experienced over the year or so?
Meaning sales aligning and working with marketing?
Or just, yeah, sales aligning with, yes, well, sales aligning with marketing and getting marketing to work, to play nice with sales and it to be a successful marriage, because it needs to be, the concept needs to be a marriage. It can't be friction. And oftentimes it is.
So to me, it comes from the top down. You must have a CEO that understands and appreciates the value of marketing. And if you don't, go work somewhere else. So good marketing is hard to find. A lot of marketers waste a ton of money doing trade shows and what I would consider very outdated practices that don't actually generate demand and drive revenue. Mm-hmm. So there has been a historical, I think, image associated with marketing with a department that just spends lots of money. Mm-hmm. So a good marketing department should be a demand generation team. That means focused on creating demand, not capturing demand. Two very, very different things. Mm-hmm. Creating demand is educating the market at scale after you've spent time figuring out where your buyers are going to get information. So for us at SourceDay, we spend lots of time talking to customers, talking to prospects, talking to leaders in supply chain. And one of the things I always ask is, what social media platform do you use the most for business? And where do you go to get trusted information? Mm-hmm. Those two things are really, really important to know because it's going to tell you where your buyers are going to get their information. Some companies, it may be email. Some companies, it may be TikTok, Insta, Twitter. For us at SourceDay, it's LinkedIn. 9 out of 10 people we ask spend more time on LinkedIn for business than any other platform. So what does that tell me as a marketer? We need to invest heavily in LinkedIn, both in organic and paid, leveraging LinkedIn Live to host shows and providing useful, relevant content to direct spend buyers in supply chain. So you asked, how can sales and marketing align? So again, top-down CEO executive team must understand and believe in the value of marketing, or you're not going to get very far. The second thing is working with a CRO or whoever is running the sales team and making sure that you have a working process in place where marketing is focused on demand generation. And then you've got a process in place for when the inbounds come in, making sure you're creating qualified inbounds. So one of the biggest challenges or things that happens is marketing goes out and is just capturing as many emails as possible. Most companies call these MQLs. And then they pass that off to the BDR and sales team. So their numbers look great. They're hitting all their monthly targets, but the step that's being missed is the quality piece. No one from marketing is going in and saying, are these people qualified? Are they actually interested in our product? Can they buy? Are they ready to buy? So if you're a marketer, get on the phone and start following up with the inbounds that are coming in. And in a couple of weeks, you will quickly be able to tell if you are bringing in the right type of person. If not, you need to really pivot and reassess the type of people that you're marketing to. And what happens is when you start feeding sales a bunch of crap, they immediately are going to devalue marketing and have no interest in working with you. They're going to go out on their own, do their own hunting, do their own prospecting. therein creates the rub between sales and marketing. Marketing's generating a bunch of crappy inbounds. We don't have time or resources to deal with it. So we're going to ignore everything that marketing's doing and go doing on our own. So once you as a marketer follow up on the inbounds that you're generating, you're going to quickly be able to determine the quality. And if it's not quality, you need to pivot and change. You as a marketer start bringing in qualified inbounds, you better believe your sales team is going to like you and get on board pretty quickly. So to me, that's the best and quickest way to align sales and marketing, is marketing actually adding value for the sales team, and marketing seeing that marketing is generating inbounds that are actually going to help them and that are people that are able and ready to buy.
Mm-hmm. That's that, needless to say, makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of money in the long run, but it aligns with the fact that in my definition of marketing has always been marketing is a service of sales, right? So with sales changing a little bit, because digital has also changed a lot, having marketing measure the qualifications of their inbounds before they hand them over to sales only makes sense. And that's done through analytics, or it's done through one-on-ones, like you said.
I would argue, pick up the phone. Don't look at don't rely on metrics and data. Inbounds come in, pick up the phone and actually have a conversation. And that's going to be the best way to gauge the quality.
Mm-hmm.
The other piece of marketing that I think is really important is to focus on dark social. So dark social is a term that been around a long time. Chris Walker, who's my favorite marketer, who has a podcast called The State of Demand Gen, talks about this a lot. And it's basically the fact that attribution software does not do a good job of tracking the ROI of dark social. But dark social is really essential to good marketing and being able to generate interest and education to drive inbounds. Mm-hmm. For us at SourceDay, our number one dark social channel is LinkedIn. And what I mean by that is I'm personally posting at least once a day, 7 days a week on LinkedIn, and I am reading all the comments and engaging with the comments. Now, by somebody commenting and engaging with me, there's no software that's tracking the ROI of that, but that's invaluable to me as a marketer because I'm going to get ideas for other content, other posts, and get a better pulse of what's happening in the industry. And I think it's really important that you look at the quality over the quantity. So I would rather have 1,000 impressions on a post and 100 comments from qualified people in my industry versus posting a photo of a dog and getting 1 million impressions, but having nothing to do with and no relevance to my company and our industry. So you need to be really careful about how you look at and assess the metrics and really look at the qualitative information, not just focusing on quantitative.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The other part of dark social is that there's a handoff that also cannot be measured or tracked, where you are talking with somebody and that person who is not connected with you, but is connected with the person that is talking with you, they get to see their comment. You don't know them. And eventually you can network together because now they're aware of who you are and maybe they'll connect with you. And you won't
Another example of dark social is the power of somebody sharing your content.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody reading your post, sharing it internally on Slack, sending it to their boss, DMing it to somebody else. So there's a lot of power in posting useful, valuable content than that other people are sharing on your behalf.
What you just mentioned, and I hope I get the name correct, Chris Walker.
Yes.
That's happening in dark social. He won't be able to track it back here, but maybe 5 people will look him up. So the power of dark social is confounding, because sometimes people may attempt to attribute it to something that it is not attributable to. They'll say, oh, well, that was probably the convention happened, this is when that happened, so it's the convention, they probably passed by our booth during the convention, but it's not. It may be something something that was mentioned like this.
The other part of dark social that I think is really important is to look at video content. So this is something that I have not done enough of, and I've committed to actually launching a direct spend podcast in the next couple months and starting to produce more video content. Video content performs very, very well on LinkedIn. Now, you may not get as many views or impressions, but the quality that you're going to get, in my opinion, is much higher because somebody cares enough about what you're talking about to watch a video. Mm-hmm. And because Google owns YouTube, there's a lot of power in SEO and being able to post regular, consistent content on YouTube.
Yeah, it's also available on demand. So, you do it, you pack it away, you walk away, and it's available until it's pulled down. So, I can't stress some sort of a conversation. Sometimes if you're a thought leader and you do something, like a 5-minute conversation once a week, that could be as powerful as posting on Twitter. Alongside of that, it's just something to consider. And it's shareable, it's watchable, it's listenable, and there's a lot of strength in it, which is why I'm doing the show Email and Coffee, because there was a little bug in the side of my head that kept saying, do it, build it and they will come. And I kept saying, who is they? And the little voice kept saying, I don't know, just do it. So it's like, okay, I can't take it, I'm doing it. And so I still do it. And who's it in benefit of? It's not for my benefit. It really is for everyone else's benefit, because in my book, in any case, we all come up the ranks. We all go through experiences. We're all ordinary people, no matter who we are, living in extraordinary times. No matter what times those are, they're always extraordinary. And those circumstances can be shared. There's something that somebody will get out of one thing that you've said, and that's really all that matters. And it may be professional, it may be personal, it may make their day, it may make them think something that they have never thought of before. And that's what I'm doing. I'm just sharing it, whatever I can, with an audience that I would never, ever have access to. Which brings me to another thought, and I wanted to discuss it with you. Digital obviously introduced the world of remote, but once again, COVID, what happens if COVID really pushed it forward? And I have been a remote worker since 2000, right? And I lost a lot of jobs because I would interview, they would say, can you come in? And I would say, sure. And then, I would go in for an interview, and then they would, insist that I work in the office. And I said, no, I don't want to work in the office. That's not where I work best. I'm not a schmoozer. I don't work well in a group. They interrupt me. I'm really heads down. I know what I'm doing. I don't need to be told, oh, Joy, are you working on this? If it's got a deadline, I'm going to bring it forth, maybe even earlier than deadline. I'm independent. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a solopreneur. I am who I am. So the world has changed. Remote work, remote networking, all these things have been introduced. And while there have been any number of people that have said one more Zoom meeting and I'm going to shoot myself, I don't think it's going away. And so things are going to continue to change. How do you, how do you think about those things? Positive, negative, Any relevant concept that you want to share?
So I think culture starts from the top, and you can have incredible culture whether you're in person or not. To me, it's led by example from the CEO and the top down. So I do not agree with some of the companies that are requiring their workforce to come back into the office 5 days a week. I think they're really missing the boat on the hybrid model and the ability for people to flex and work under a circumstance and environment that makes the most sense for them. So my philosophy is you can develop an awesome culture anywhere. Now, for companies and teams that are fully remote, which I have many friends that are now fully remote and virtual, it's important to have regular in-person meetups.
Yeah.
So picking a central destination, having some fun activities, having valuable, useful in-person sessions, I do think is important to have innovation and really establish relationships. So if you are thinking about having a fully remote team, that's something that I really would encourage you to think about, is how can you meet up in person regularly to have meaningful interactions in person. I think we're going to see more and more of a hybrid model where people will be going into the office a couple days a week and then working remote on the days that make the most sense for them. I think people also have different styles about when they work best. My best friend, for instance, is not a morning person. So her getting up and working, doing calls and getting work done at 6 a.m. is not going to be optimal, and it's not going to maximize her skill sets and abilities. But give her, a call or working late at night, and she's awesome. And that's when she performs at her best. So I also think it's important for people to really be able to figure out what's going to work best for them. Now, the caveat to that, of course, is specific type of roles. If you are working on an assembly line or managing a call center, of course, there are certain hours and things you need to adhere to. But for a lot of people, I think giving them the flexibility to work when it makes the most sense for them is really important. And then you have the whole challenge with daycare and family. And so I think just being really flexible and understanding the situation is important. So as a leader, I think it's important to create a culture and environment where people can feel comfortable working a schedule that makes the most sense for them and having ability to track and manage performance. If somebody is not performing, then there needs to be a way to manage that and come up with a better structure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think growing into this hybrid model is really a huge benefit. And I think people need to stop fighting it. It's different. It's not the way business was. Okay. Period. The end. Today is another day. So is there a problem with yesterday? No. So I do believe that, as you said, well, there's the broad view that there are leaders and followers, and followers will need to go in perhaps to an office, and those people need to be led by other people, and that makes sense. And there are particular jobs. You mentioned assembly line, where somebody's doing an assembly line project. They can't do that at home. They can't put that together. They can't put a car together at home. They're going to need to go into the shop, and they're going to need to do their particular job. And they know what it is. It's very outlined. It has a responsibility, and they know that, and that's fine. That's what they want to do. But then you have the leaders, the thinkers, and their circuit changes when they're taken out of the office. The people who are doing all of the other jobs are responsible for their jobs, know what their responsibilities are capable to do them. Now the thought leaders can do what thought leaders do: think, solve, meet people, network, do all those things. And I think that's a far more functional environment in the long run. And if we embrace the hybrid model, I think it will be more helpful in the long run, because it provides a lot of healthy opportunity for people. Like you said, I don't do well. I'm a morning person. I would much rather get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, but I don't want to spend that time traveling to work. I could be working at 6 o'clock in the morning when I'm at my peak. So let me work in my pajamas with a cup of coffee. Let me do that, you know? Yeah, but I also see there's another spin to this, and that is networking, where people, where once, and you mentioned that you're not necessarily the conference fan, people once relied on conferences, relied on the networking meetings, and those things have also spun differently. While the conferences all became virtual, I don't think that was as great of an innovation, because it's how do you walk through a booth and it's a virtual booth? You know, how do you tag somebody without seeing that they're there? You're literally, you know, you're blind, and you're searching for somebody. Oh, maybe somebody's there. I'll go talk with them. You know, and that's what you're doing virtually when you're networking virtually. But something that I did do was I reached out to networking groups which opened their doors. In Toronto, I started networking groups in California, in all over the United States. I created a mastermind group alongside someone else, and I started networking virtually that way. And I find that to be wildly rewarding. So I see the change happening to the convention. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think 10 or 20 years ago, trade shows had a purpose in that there wasn't a lot of the digital ways to capture contact information. So in order to figure out someone's email, in order to figure out their phone number, you needed to go to a trade show or to some sort of in-person event to get that information. But today, no longer the case. You can leverage Zoom info, Apollo, several other platforms to get any contact information you need. So spending $50,000, $100,000 on a trade show, to me, in most cases, is a complete waste of money. Now, you may want to send somebody to a conference so they can network, meet speakers, they can potentially get themselves to be a speaker at the conference in the future. That's very different than spending all of this money to stand at a booth that nobody even comes to, when they can just go online and find the information themselves. What I do think is really important is to look at community building. And how can you build a community in your space, which is a way to network and meet people and to gather useful insights about what's happening in your industry. So when COVID hit in April of 2020, I launched a supply chain happy hour group that met for 2 years every single Wednesday. Anybody who was in supply chain globally was invited, both suppliers and buyers. And we started this really kind of like a family. I call it my tribe. And we would get together, we'd talk about how we're doing personally. And then I would always have some supply chain topic that we would talk about together. That became so successful, I've now relaunched it as my new role in Source Day, and we meet twice a month. And I gain so much valuable insight about what is happening in supply chain, in particular in the direct spend space, from that community, and that guides a lot of the content and strategy that we produce.
Mm-hmm. My thought is that the trade show, the convention, the booths are going to go eventually, and it's just going to be a bunch of speakers. And time, that big area will be the hugest networking area you could possibly imagine. With people perhaps coming out of a session, a speaker session, all revved up, with great ideas and meeting and talking with people, perhaps over a meal, you know, something like that. I do think spending all that ton of money on a booth and lugging it around, and having your salespeople, you know, all come into town and all that money, you're right, send a few people. Have a speaker.
Well, it's just kind of backwards when good marketing should be providing useful content and information versus trying to force MQLs or people to come swipe a badge to quote, get their contact information so they can get a free t-shirt, in my opinion, is not driving qualified inbounds.
No, no, swag isn't gonna make it anymore. Although it's nice, I do like swag. So we're coming to the end of our discussion. I'm hoping that you can share some of your digital assets where people can find you on LinkedIn or any other places that you want to invite people to meet you.
Yeah, so the best way to connect with me is on LinkedIn. You can find me under Sarah Scudder, Manufacturing Maven. I also have two hashtags that I've created. One is Women in ERP. The other is Manufacturing Maven. I host a LinkedIn live show every single week. One of them is a Women in ERP show. One of them is a Manufacturing Woe show. So if you're in manufacturing or in ERP and would like to network and learn about what's happening in the industry, I would encourage you to check those out. And I'm also very active on Twitter. My handle is @scudder. So you can also connect and engage with me there as well.
Great. I have watched a few of your shows, and they're for me, they're really great shows. So I do recommend them to any of the listeners here. Well, thanks so much. It's been really great meeting with you. I wish you the very best. And Bradley, if you're out there, hey, see what you're missing? Happy email marketing, you all, and Sarah, take care of yourself.
All right, thanks for having me on.
You too, bye-bye.